A dam nearly breaking on the Westside, a sex offender tracked down after meeting with a 9-year-old, cops busting vape shops on the highest holiday of the year, and an El Paso man who became a national hero by slowing down. This is your El Paso Daily Dispatch, your week in the Sun City. I'm going to get you caught up fast, so stay with me. And we're starting with the story that had Westsiders checking their phones every hour Wednesday night, because a dam was threatening to go. Let's start with the biggest developing story of the week. Wednesday, El Paso Water put out an alert that sent a chill through Westside neighborhoods. Cement Lake, located in an undeveloped pocket between I-10 and Donovan Drive, was at risk of a dam breach. Now, before you imagine a Hollywood disaster movie, here's the reality. El Paso Water said crews were actively working to reduce pressure on the dam and prevent overflow, but they were not taking any chances. The utility company was coordinating with multiple local agencies as workers rushed to stabilize the structure. And the concern was real enough that road closures went into effect Wednesday night, with EPPD warning that Donovan Drive and Paisano Drive could both be impacted and that those lane closures might affect your Thursday morning commute. Here's a detail that makes this even more interesting. El Paso Water had only acquired Cement Lake and the surrounding 300 acres back in March, just weeks ago, from TxDOT as part of an open space acquisition. So the ink was barely dry on that deal when they found themselves dealing with a potential dam situation. Cement Lake holds water fed by a natural spring, and as of the time we're putting this together, crews are still on site. We'll keep an eye on this one. If you're on the west side, check EPPD and El Paso Water's social pages before heading out. Now, from one kind of pressure to a completely different kind, because while that was happening on the west side, something much more deliberate was going down in Horizon City, and the timing was no accident. April 20th, 4/20. You know what that date means. And so did the Horizon City Police Department, the Socorro Police Department, and the DEA, because they planned their entire operation around it. Dubbed Operation 420, the coordinated crackdown targeted vape shops in Horizon City that investigators say were allegedly selling THC products in violation of the Texas Health and Safety Code. For context, in Texas, THC is a controlled substance. Full stop. This isn't a gray area under state law. Here's how it went down. Over the past month, DEA agents had been working alongside Horizon City and Socorro Police, conducting surveillance at multiple establishments. They identified customers who allegedly purchased illegal THC products, obtained arrest warrants, and then waited. They executed those warrants on April 20th, specifically because of the day's association with marijuana. That's not a coincidence. That's a message. 6 people were arrested, 4 men and 2 women, ranging in age from 18 to 72 years old. Yes, 72. Charges included possession of a controlled substance and possession of marijuana under 2 ounces. But the broader context here matters, because this crackdown comes just weeks after new Texas regulations started forcing El Paso hemp businesses to pull large chunks of their inventory. The borderlands relationship with THC law is genuinely complicated right now, and this operation is the latest chapter. Alright, moving on. Because while law enforcement was busy in Horizon City, EPPD's specialized sex offender unit was running down a very different kind of case. And this one involves a child. This is a serious one. On Tuesday, April 21st, El Paso police arrested 47-year-old Jesus Alfredo Cuellar, a registered lifetime sex offender, after investigators say he contacted and physically met with a 9-year-old child. The arrest came from EPPD's Sex Offender Registration and Tracking Unit, the SORT unit, which monitors registered sex offenders across the city. The investigation revealed that Cuellar had been communicating with the minor using a phone number he never reported, along with unregistered social media accounts and an email address. Under Texas law, registered sex offenders are required to disclose all of that. Cuellar allegedly did none of it. He was charged with 3 counts of failure to comply with sex offender registration duties. His bond, $300,000, $100,000 per count. As of Wednesday, he remained in custody. EPPD reminded the public that the SORT unit has a zero-tolerance policy for registry violations. If you suspect a registered sex offender is violating their conditions, you can call EPPD at 915-832-4400 or report it anonymously through Crime Stoppers at 915-566-8477. Now, I want to pivot hard from that story to something that genuinely restored faith in humanity this week. An El Paso man ran 26.2 miles in Boston and went viral, not for finishing first, but for what he did in the final half mile. You need to hear this. Monday was Marathon Monday in Boston, the 130th running of one of the world's most iconic races. And right there, among the more than 32,000 runners, was an El Pasoan named Israel Rivera, running his very first Boston Marathon. Rivera had a goal: finish in under 3 hours. He trained for it. He qualified for it. He was right on pace when he rounded onto Boylston Street, legs cramping, praying to get through it. And then he saw a fellow runner named Jonathan Adams collapse directly in front of him just short of the finish line. Rivera didn't hesitate. He stopped, he pulled Adams to his feet, and for the last half mile of the race, he walked and carried him toward the finish. Another runner, Henko Visser from South Africa, joined them. Together the three men crossed the line. Rivera's finishing time? 3:02:28. 2 minutes and 28 seconds past his personal goal. When asked about it, Rivera said, and I'm paraphrasing here because this is just who this man is, he said the moment someone fell in front of him, his own goals completely left his mind. He just wanted to help. The moment was captured on camera. It went viral. National outlets picked it up. Boston.com covered it. And Rivera and Adams, they've since connected on Strava, a runner's tracking app, and say they're now friends. In a week full of heavy news, Israel Rivera is exactly the kind of story that reminds you what El Paso is made of. That one hit different. We're proud of you, Israel. But we're not done. We've got a big local story about a massive project that could reshape the east side of the city, and a community that has a lot of questions about it. On Wednesday evening, the U.S. Army and global investment firm Carlyle Group held a community meeting at the Wyndham Hotel near El Paso Airport. And it did not go smoothly. Here's the backdrop. The Army has conditionally selected Carlyle to build and operate a massive commercial data center on 1,384 acres of currently unused Fort Bliss land in Far East El Paso, near Montana Avenue and Loop 375. Under the Army's Enhanced Use Lease program, Carlyle would fund everything: construction, operation, decommissioning, with zero taxpayer dollars. In return, the Army gets dedicated computing power to support artificial intelligence and national security modernization. On paper, it sounds significant. Officials projected up to 2,000 permanent jobs and billions in private investment for the region. The facility would potentially start at 100 megawatts of compute and scale all the way to 2.5 gigawatts at full build-out. But the packed room at that community meeting had some hard questions, and residents didn't feel they were getting hard answers. Water, power, environmental impact. Those were the big three. Officials insisted the facility would be completely self-contained, generating its own electricity, likely through a combined cycle gas turbine, and using a closed-loop water system designed to be water-neutral. They said it would not pull from El Paso Electric's grid or impact local ratepayers. Community members weren't totally convinced. One resident at the meeting put it plainly. He wanted a clear answer on why El Paso, which he argued can barely sustain the data centers already in the pipeline, needs yet another one. And here's the thing. This would be the third proposed data center in the Borderland region, following Meta's $10 billion Northeast El Paso project and another previously proposed facility. The city wasn't even informed about the Fort Bliss project until the Army announced it. Officials are still in early negotiation stages. No contract is signed, but the community listening session made clear. People are paying close attention. This one will be worth watching over the coming months. All right, we've got one more story before we wrap up, and it's one that directly affects a rescue organization with over 60 dogs and a ticking clock. This story has been building for months, and this week it hit a new pressure point. Law N Paws Animal Rescue, a shelter housing more than 60 dogs in Far East El Paso County, is in a standoff with county leadership over access to their facility. Here's the situation. El Paso County has been developing a linear park project in the area, a project that was first identified as a county priority all the way back in 2016. But as construction has progressed, a 6-foot brick wall has been built in front of the rescue's main entrance, progressively narrowing their access point. At Monday's county meeting, Law N Paws volunteer Jasmine Gallardo pleaded their case. That entrance, she said, is the rescue's only safe, accessible entry point for staff, volunteers, and the animals being brought in and out. Crossing alternate terrain around back, she said, is unsafe for people and animals alike. County officials acknowledged the situation and gave Law N Paws a 30-day deadline to reach a final agreement before the entrances closed entirely. They say the MOU was first sent to the rescue back in December, confirmed received in February, and that they've been trying to coordinate a relocation plan. Law N Paws says they're not ready. More than 60 dogs remain at the current site. Their new property is still being built out in phases, starting with an enrichment area, then kennels. They're asking for help with funding, materials, and labor, and say the pressure to rush the timeline is actually pulling their volunteers away from building the new space. If you want to help Law N Paws during this crunch, their social media pages have information on how to donate or volunteer. This is exactly the kind of story where community support can make a real difference, and 60-plus dogs are counting on it. That's your week in El Paso. The dam scare on the Westside, the Operation 4 on 20 bust, a sex offender behind bars, a marathon moment that went national, a Fort Bliss mega project facing community pushback, and 60 dogs caught in the middle of a county land dispute. A full week in the Sun City. If this recap was useful, hit subscribe and drop a comment on which story hit closest to home for you. We'll see you next week right here on the El Paso Daily Dispatch.